Hello, Mrs. Kelly. I'm from the Department of Social Welfare. Can I come in? I'd just like
Some people are very interested in the elderly. They keep a watchful eye on them.
Good day, sir. I'm from the East B. I'm here to read your meter. I think our last bill was an estimate. Is that right? Yeah, it was an estimate.
They're particularly good at calling by when old people are alone and vulnerable.
Hiya. I was just passing and I saw there's a slate loose on your roof at the back. I can fix that for you now. And it wouldn't cost much at all. Do you hear me? Get out of the bleeding way.
They turned around, they shoved me into the room, and they bet me around the room. And I still am horrified. If I hear the sound at all, I get all worked up. Horrified. And you hear them going by there at night, and you hear them here.
In recent years, we Irish have become fond of calling ourselves the young Europeans, a country seemingly entirely populated by 22-year-olds. But look around you. Look at the people in the shops and the streets. Think of the people in your own neighbourhood. And suddenly you realise there are lots of old people everywhere. You probably see plenty of them every day. You may even know a few. But how much do you know about them? About how difficult life might be for them, how dependent they might be on the help provided by others, how they're coping in a society which quite often forgets that they're there at all.
But it is lonely unless you have someone to talk to. It's a lonely life. When you have a man for nearly 49 years, and all of a sudden, you know it. It's lonely.
In this programme, you'll hear several different stories. What it's like to be old, the problems elderly people face every day, what it's like to help the elderly, or not. Different people telling their own stories. We hope you find them interesting and that you might feel it a good thing to be more aware of the elderly. More aware of what life is like for them. Sometimes it helps to see things through the eyes of others.
Living alone, in fact, has many consequences as far as the elderly people or person concerned. Loneliness is when that impacts significantly on their independence. It impacts on their capacity to live alone. They feel very deprived, isolated. They get quite depressed. They get quite withdrawn. Being alone does mean that a person is more vulnerable, and it's very important.
That's why I wanted to appeal now to the youth to try and do something, but then you don't know how you're going to do it. You see, the old people are so nervous now they will not answer the doors.
Do you want to help? Do you want to be a good neighbour? If you do, start by visiting your uncle, your aunt, your next door neighbour. They'll know you're a neighbour.
Well, when you're talking to elderly people, like, they've lived their lives, a lot of people can be up to 70 years old, 80 years old, so obviously they will they'll know a lot more than you could ever know, because they've been around so much longer. So, like, in that context, yeah, you can learn so much from them. Definitely don't time travel.
Well, I'll be 85 next month, the 7th. And I was born and reared in Sir John Hodgson's Quay. My father was caretaker of the B&I where I was born. In 1916, my mother and I were under the bed from the snipers from the Hellgate. And the bullets was coming through the window and we were under the bed. They looted every bit of the stores, and they had pianos out in the street and the old ones sitting down playing them. And they run away with cheap chests of tea bags of flour, everything they could get. And he got a revolver in the drawer. And he went in and he stood at the top of the stores. I can still see my father with that revolver. He said, anyone comes further than me, I'll shoot. And I kept saying, Daddy, Daddy, don't shoot.
Most people associate squalor with Dublin in the last century. Even today, every week we find a situation of an elderly person in squalor, and there's no need for that. If people were visiting, that squalor wouldn't be there, but unfortunately it is. By visiting elderly people, you can avoid them being isolated. Visiting the elderly person also helps them be less vulnerable to attacks, to robberies.
Hello, Mrs. Sweeney. I'm from the council. I'm doing a survey on water quality.
Well, I've no doubt, in fact, that there are people who prey upon the elderly. Let's take, for example, a situation that I know myself that I've intervened in on at least one occasion, where I've seen somebody talking animatedly with an elderly person.
I'm from the corporation, and we're doing a bit of work in the drains next door. And we know it's yours, but
But on the particular occasion that I intervened, it wasn't a genuine tradesman. It was a guy, in fact, who was going around targeting the area.
It's going to be ages before we're in this area again.
One should remember that these guys, in fact, that this is an everyday occurrence. This is a business with them. This is how they make their living.
We all regard today's crimes as being carried out by men. Not all the crimes are carried out by men. Women with babies, small children, will knock at the door.
He started to pull me out. I said, don't pull me down, please mind my leg, please mind my leg. He still kept pulling me, and I tried to hold the bag. And now they tell you not to hold, let them have it. And I tried to hold it, well, they fired me up against this big wall, and they took the bag, there was £7 in it, and the cake and the ice cream, and they went off. But there was £7 in the purse, and that was to do me the rest of the week out of my old age pension.
The meagre sum of money most elderly people are often forced to live on weekly is still enough to make many of them vulnerable to attack. But for most of them, the real struggle is in managing to survive on the money they receive.
I get nothing from no one. And I live on £80, 70 a week. And you buy coal, and you buy food. And you just enough to get by on. It's barely enough, but I don't mind once I have enough to eat and a bed to lie in.
Well, myself now and Kathy, my wife, we were married since 1933. She died 6 years ago last Sunday. And it's still an empty house. And I find the same now, even after the 6 years. If I come here after being out for the day, I have the same difficulty coming, just the same as the first day. The loss is still there. And I turn around now sometimes, you know, if I was watching the television, something happens up to Mrs. Bouquet or someone like that, and I said, isn't she good? I don't know what it is. Turn around to say it to her. You don't know, what the hell am I doing talking to myself?
But often the elderly people who are in well-off sections of the community, who live in more exclusive housing estates or standalone houses, who are buffered by probably good pensions, who've always had a high standard of living, they often can be the loneliest of all. They're often slow to admit to their poverty when it occurs. They're very slow to admit to loneliness. Suddenly, they can become extremely deprived, because what happens is that they might get a mini stroke, they can no longer drive, they're housebound. People who live in these type of houses are often in the greatest need of support from community members, and they benefit greatest, in my opinion and my experience, from visitation of young people.
You don't need me to do anything for you.
And
Everything did okay.
I do my best.
Well, where Margaret's concerned,
Thank you.
she's a very independent person, so she doesn't really need a lot of work, physical work done for her. It's more so the chat more than anything that Margaret would appreciate. Like when you go in, like you're literally entertained while you're there. A lot of them can be very funny. Like sometimes you can go into visit someone and you could spend your whole 10 or 15 minutes just laughing, like that they can come out with such funny things. You don't have to go in and do their housework or anything like that. A lot of the time they don't expect it. But just for a chat more than anything, or maybe get their shopping for them, or get them packed of cigarettes or a magazine, something to that effect.
Padraig has become a special friend to Margaret, a widow living in his neighbourhood.
Do the shopping for them. Make sure they have sufficient in till you come back again to help them out. Most of all, cold, hypothermia. It's a killer. Hypothermia kills, especially in the old people. They're very vulnerable to it. So it's very important they have a warm room in the house. But most important of all is human companionship. It's something that's very precious to all of us.
I used to sit here and cry every night. And last Christmas was my first Christmas without my husband. And my daughter asked me to go over to her, but I didn't. And I sat here all day on my own. And I saw no one. It was the loneliest Christmas I ever played. And I wanted to stay here, just pretending he was here.
I think a lot of us forget that the elderly have so much to offer. And I know I am eternally surprised, and I work with the elderly all the time. And I think many younger people find great support and tremendous surprise that the elderly have so much to offer them.
I am now gone 84 last September, and I came to Dublin in 1933. There was a lot of unrest in the country then between the IRA and the Blue Shirt movement, which had been started as part of the fascist organisation with blue shirts. And we had to go every Sunday, for Sunday after Sunday, we're gone somewhere from the depot in the Phoenix Park, 4 or 5 tender loads, along with whatever guards they could muster from around the country, forming a barrier between the two systems, either meeting each other. This went on, you know, for quite a while, and then it died out.
Your friendship could be the first step towards helping an elderly person to lead a life which has the security, contact and meaning which every elderly person deserves.
Treat them with kindness and help them on their weary road home. That's all I have. That's the way I want it now. I'm not the only one. I suppose there's hundreds like me. And I suppose that'll be their cry this morning. Help them on their way for the remainder of their time left. As for me, I don't want to live any longer. I don't. No.
Do you want to help? Do you want to be a good neighbour?